This is Eat, Sleep, Invest, the marketing podcast for real estate investors to get more deals. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Eat, Sleep, and Invest. I'm your host, Brian Driscoll, and I'm here with Chris Miles. What's going on, Chris?
Hey, Brian. So excited to be here, man. Happy New Year.
Hey, you too. Thanks for coming on. Hey, so Chris, why don't you give everybody a little bit of background on like what you do, how you got into it, all that good stuff?
Yeah. So, like all people that get into money stuff, I'm one of those people that was never into money in the first place. When I was raised by two parents that were, good, hardworking people, but the one thing they didn't understand was money. And I remember, growing up with words, maybe you've heard phrases like this growing up where it's like, hey, we can't afford that. What do you think I am, made of money? Money doesn't grow on trees, and, all that kind of stuff. And even my dad, who was in the automotive industry, I mean, he's like, I'm going to die working this job. Like, it will literally kill me, and like, I thought that's not the life I want. So like every teenager, you want to go do the opposite of what your parents do, right? You want to do something different and not follow the same path. And so after going into college, I was trying to go into something like business consulting, but I thought, well, if I'm going to do that, I should have real life business experience. So I dropped out of college with one class to go, just like supposed to be a temporary hiatus, right? Like a little sabbatical. Drop out of college. I'm like, well, what kind of business am I going to do? So yeah, the first opportunity that came across my way was becoming a financial advisor. And my big thing was I wanted to learn about money because if anything, if I could learn about money for myself, could it also buy my dad his time back? Because he thought he'd work until he died. What if I gave him at least a year or two of his life back by doing something right? So I went to that field. But after a few years, I remember it was a pretty interesting day. It was actually between Christmas and New Year's. I had a guy that I trained to be a financial advisor. And I thought, I'm going to check in on him, see how he's doing. So I could give him a call. His name was Doug. I said, hey, Doug, how's it going? Merry Christmas. Happy New Year, right? And he said, yeah, things are great, Chris. Like ever since I quit being a financial advisor and done real estate investing, my dad and I have partnered on some deals and we've doubled his income as a professor at the local university. I said, come on, that's too good to be true. No way is that possible. He's like, we're doing it, whether you believe it or not. And we got this debate back and forth. And finally, he just stopped me. He said, Chris, how many of your clients are financially free where they don't worry about money? And he got me with that last part of the phrase because I had retired clients, even retired doctors, but they were all worried about running out of money. They all thought they would run out if the market didn't smile on them just right that year, right? And this is after Y2K too. So I said, none of my clients are financially free. Great job, Chris. Way to go there. All right, how about this? How many of your clients, Chris, and not just your clients, but you guys as financial advisors, how many of you guys are financially free, not off the commissions you're earning, but actually doing these investments? And there he got me because I said, well, none. I don't think any of these guys are. I know guys who worked since the late 1970s that are still working in our office today. He said, there's your problem. I'm like, well, give me the answer. And so we finally, we had some conversations, went back and forth. I started to learn more and more about some of the real estate investing and passive income. And ironically enough, even though I'd read Rich Dad, Poor Dad as a financial advisor several times, it never clicked until I started to learn real ways and how money really worked and really what that cash flow mindset was, not that accumulation mindset was. And once I got that figured out, everything clicked. And I started focusing more on passive income. The next thing you know, I quit being a financial advisor, vowed never to be a financial advisor again. That's why I'm the anti-financial advisor today. And even later that year, 2006, I actually became financially independent myself when I was 28 years old.
That's pretty solid. That's pretty young to get financially free too.
Yeah, it was. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, I was on the path just like my dad, ironically, right? I was, when he mentioned all the financial advisors, I was one of them because I was, accumulating and saving and storing up, your mutual fund like you're a squirrel, just saving up those nuts, hoping that you can live on less than the interest someday. And I'm like, what kind of life was that? And I thought it would be so hard to do. I thought I had to save up $2 million so I can live on $60,000 a year before taxes, right? And then all of a sudden I'm living on about that same amount of money, with very, very little capital out of pocket because I learned ways to create passive income.
So what are the tips? What are the tricks?
Well, biggest tip and trick was one, I had to change that mindset, right? I mean, I know it's probably something you've heard on several other episodes, but you really have to shift out of that accumulation mindset. That's the number one problem I see with the clients that we bring on. Like when we help them get them out of the rat race within 5 or 10 years, that's the biggest thing is that they've been storing up all this money. They've been trying to pay off their houses and everything else. The biggest biggest tip I'll get you, or I can give you right now, is get your money out of prison, right? Get your money out of prison. Like, get it out of equity of your home and things like that. Assuming you know what to do with it if you're a wise steward. I'm not saying just take money out and go buy Bitcoin. That's not what I'm talking about here, right? I'm talking about, like, find where you have resources. Where do you have net worth that's not working for you? The net worth is worthless unless it creates passive income. So do you have savings sitting around not doing anything? Old 401ks and IRAs or whatever it might be. Do you have equity sitting in places that maybe can be utilized to start generating more passive income that can even make your payments for you and then some, right? That's the real big key. And that's what happened with me. I started to really assess and look at my resources and see what I had. And by the way, if you have time, what an amazing resource you can use to turn that into more income too. Like, one of the things I learned the first time that wasn't just real estate based, right? I created passive income through real estate, but one of the other things that got me out of the rat race faster was I had a business streams of income coming in. This one was actually accidental. It was at the time I was talking with one of my mentors that was in real estate, and I'm talking with him. He said, "Okay, Chris, I see what you're doing every day." And his big question was, "Okay, if money were no issue, what would you spend your time doing?" Because sometimes you have to know the end from the beginning to kind of get there, right? That vision, Steve Jobs says the vision will pull you to your destination. And he said, "Chris, you're doing mortgages right now," because I quit being a financial advisor, but I stayed on as a mortgage broker. And then he said, "And then you're teaching, seems like you're teaching ballroom dance on the side. You're even doing some stock coaching. You're teaching people how to trade stocks and options. Is that your dream?" I said, "No." I'm like, "Maybe ballroom dancing would be my dream." At first I said travel. He's like, "Chris, are you really going to spend 52 weeks of the year traveling?" "No, that sounds boring and kind of horrible, actually." So no, maybe I'll spend 9 weeks of the year traveling, but the other 45 weeks or 43 weeks of the year, maybe then I'll just do teach ballroom dancing. Little known fact, I was one of the nation's top amateur ballroom dancers.
Really?
Yeah. So actually, if you ever seen Dancing with the Stars, especially in the early days when it first came on, some of those professionals were people either I danced with or I trained with. So it was
pretty cool.
Yeah. So that kind of dates me. That's how old I am, right? But so I was thinking teaching ballroom dance maybe at the local university. I was already doing it for free. I thought, well, maybe I
How'd you
could
get into ballroom dancing?
What's that?
How'd you get into ballroom dancing?
Actually, through college. I was going to college. Found out I took math classes in high school that calculus that took care of all my credits for college. So I was one credit short of being full time. Had to fill in that gap, and this is back in the days, like in the 90s. When they had the computer copy paper, it goes, you tear it off, that kind of stuff. So they had all the stuff posted on the board of available classes, and I heard this girl tell this guy, "Hey, there's lots of girls in this class." And I was like, I don't know what she's talking about, but I don't want to be a creeper and just say, "What are you talking about?" So I kind of casually stalked around the corner to see what she's talking about. And it was a social dance class. So I actually got into that class, started taking it. It was horrible. I actually sucked for the first semester. Took it the second semester because I still, I enjoyed dancing with girls. It's kind of fun, to make an excuse to, touch girls in a way, right? So anyways, so I'm still dancing the next semester, and I started getting better. And so by the time I got to my junior and senior year, I was actually dancing on the world championship ballroom dance team, the one that won the formation teams and things like that. So that's actually what brought me to Utah in the first place, because they had the two best ballroom dance teams in the world. So I came here and then got married and had a whole crap load of kids, and now I've been stuck here ever since.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, because whenever you think about your purpose and what you want to do, like ballroom dancing, stuff you want to do,
Yeah. And it's funny because I don't even do that today, right? Because the thing is, I found more passion. I love teaching. That's the main passion I have, is teaching, right? And money is really it. Money, being able to teach this and teach how I did it, mainly because people keep asking me. Even when I was able to retire and get out of the rat race, people were still like, "Well, how do you do it? How did you do it?" Right? So kind of coming full circle, one of the things I did do, right? When my friend was asking me with those activities, he asked me about the mortgages. He's like, "Do you like doing mortgages?" And I said, "Well, yes and no. I love getting people the results. I love teaching them about what they can do with the mortgage, especially if they can cash out refi, invest it, and make their payment for them, or even create more passive income. They can even retire off of it. That's cool to me. But I hate paperwork. I hate the underwriting process. It's miserable. And if you've ever been through an application for a mortgage, you know how miserable it is. I hated it on my end too. And so he said, "Well, Chris, why don't you find someone to do that for you?" And it was kind of this big epiphany. I mean, that's really what a business owner does, right? Like you have to do everything yourself. When when you're self-employed, you do everything yourself. But when you have a business, when you really get more into that quote unquote B quadrant, like Kiyosaki talks about, then you start to have other people do stuff. And this is just like a team of two for us in this case, right? He said, find someone who actually likes doing the paperwork. So I asked the broker, the person who owned the company, I said, who would fit that category? I don't think anybody's quite crazy. He says, oh yeah, there is. Talk to Clark. So I talked to Clark, and Clark, I said, hey, if I just spoon feed you people, like I just teach them what they want to do, and they say, great, how do I do it? I say, talk to Clark, and you do all the work. Will you split it 50-50 with me? He said, yes. And so we created this partnership where I might spend a half an hour with people, and then the next thing I know, a month or so later, I get a check for like $1,000 or $2,000. And I thought, my goodness, that's so easy. Now understand, as a financial advisor, I was working lots of hours to try to make $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month. But then to do that, I was like, holy cow, like I don't have to hardly do anything. So between that and then also doing the real estate and having that 1-2 punch, right? Between business and passive income, or residual income and passive income, if you put it that way, I was working like 3-4 hours a week, and I was out of the rat race. And that's how I did it.
Yeah, that's interesting too, because you're right. There are people out there. I'm the same way. I don't like paperwork, all that kind of stuff. But there are people out there that love that stuff, and they don't want to talk to people. So you have to find, look what your strengths are, the things you like doing, and find those people that like doing what you don't like.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's even true today. I still do that now, even though I have a much bigger business where I do that in. But it's tough because I remember even 5 years ago, I was back to being self-employed and money ripples again, especially after going through a divorce, and I pared everything down and got lean and mean in my business. But then as the business kept growing organically, I had to keep expanding and bringing in people. And it amazes me because there's things that I refused to do in my business for years, right? Things that I'm like, oh, that would be good to do, but I'll just build my business to work around it. It's like the path of least resistance, water works around the rocks, Now it's like, okay, we're getting bigger, we're scaling up. There's no way I could do that. So let's hire people that actually love doing these things so that I don't make an excuse to try to limit how much growth we have because I'm trying to meander around these, uncomfortable things like, hey, how do I set up a Google Voice number? Things like that I would just delay and just forget about. It's like, I'll just put my cell phone on my website, right? Those kind of things.
Yeah. Now, okay, so we're talking about, I like what you said about switching your mindset from accumulation to looking for passive income. Like, what kinds of things are you what kind of things are you working with to create the passive income? Like rentals, or what do you got going on?
Yeah, all kinds of things. I mean, they usually have some sort of real asset base to it, right? Which is why real estate's great. But what many people don't realize is within real estate, there are so many avenues you can go within that category. Just within that asset class alone, there's so many directions you could take with it. So like when we have our Rolodex of investors and people like that, people can put money with, because we don't take people's money or do funds. We just help, really connect them and help them strategize how to get out of the rat race, right? And so when we do that, I mean, a lot of the type of investments we'll have are like, we have like a half dozen turnkey operators. So turnkey real estate was a huge epiphany to me, especially after the last recession, where I used to manage my own properties, and then I realized I suck as a property manager. But then when I realized I could find turnkey companies that I don't have to buy in my backyard, because anything on the western half of the United States is not great for real estate, for rentals. But on the eastern half, like the Midwest, even like southern Pennsylvania, right, or places like that, where you got great, good strong cash flow numbers you can get, and still buy it for a great price, and you don't even have to manage it. You can have a property manager do all the work for you. You're essentially just buying the property. They help you find the property. They help you, get the financing for you. They help you property manage it and everything. You just essentially have to own it and collect the checks and still potentially make at least a double-digit return, cash-on-cash return on that money. So that was a huge epiphany to me. It's like, wait, someone who has $100,000 in a mutual fund, you're only supposed to pull out 3% so you don't run out of money per year, right? That's $3,000 a year. But $100,000 in a rental, I hope to make at least $800 to $1,000 a month on that. Way better, and there's better tax advantages too, right? So that's one, is turnkey rentals. Syndications, whether you're investing in apartment buildings, self-storage. Self-storage is making a great comeback this year. 2022 kind of sucked a little bit, but now it's coming back where you're getting some good valuations on self-storage. There's businesses, even like car washes, things like that you can buy into, and you'll pull your money with other investors. So syndications are another great place. We even have people doing syndication like with oil and gas or mineral rights, where essentially, you pull your money with other investors. You guys are owning the land, that you receive mineral rights off of. It's like royalties on the oil, right? But the cool thing is you're not the one doing the drilling. Yeah, the oil companies are doing the drilling because the oil companies, believe it or not, many of the oil companies do not want to own the land. They just want to lease the land and just drill on it. That's because that's their specialty. They don't care about being real estate investors. They just want to lease the land, drill, pull it out of the earth and make money off of it, right? Whether it's natural gas, oil or whatever it might be. Well, the great thing is you can get paid on that as almost like a triple net lease, like we get paid on commercial buildings. You get paid on the land for the lease, and you get paid the profits and the royalties from them pulling the minerals out of the land. So you actually get paid twice in that sort of situation. So there's things like that, even partnerships, whether you're doing short-term lending, where you're going in on a specific real estate project, and it might be short-term, maybe it's 3, 6, 10, 12 months. Maybe you're doing something that might be 1.5 to 2 years. We have a guy that, he'll do like a 30 to 50% return in like 1.5 years because all he has to do is rezone the land and the value doubles. And then you get some of the profits off that, right? We even got people doing raw land where I don't have to do raw land. I partner with somebody who does all the raw land investing. Right now I'm making about a 49% cash on cash return on that.
Yeah, that's pretty huge. I do like the turnkey too. Are you seeing people get decent deals on the property, or are they overpaying because it's turnkey?
It's split. So out of our 6 different, this is why we have 6 turnkey operators in the first place, because every market, because they're in different markets usually, right? Every market tends to ebb and flow, and especially when interest rates went up, cash flows went down, right? Some weren't as affected as others. So there's really, out of the 6, maybe 2 companies we're referring to mostly at this point. So yeah, you do have to be careful. You really have to watch the numbers, but that's why it's good to have a Rolodex of different people there to say, okay, maybe Florida's not great right now because the prices went up too high, but maybe in a few years things might settle down, or rent might catch up to it again, and then you can go back in and still make better money. Versus like some places like in the Midwest right now or Southeast, numbers are still pretty good.
Right. Yeah, I do like turnkey too, because a lot of people want to get into real estate. Like, I'm an investor myself, same as you, and yeah, I know the headaches. So if you can get somebody to help you find a property, manage it. Managing properties suck. If you can find someone who specializes in that, yeah, you can get into real estate without having to learn how contractors screw you, learn how to deal with them and all that kind of stuff. So turnkey is pretty decent, yeah, if you can find a win-win and the numbers make sense.
Yeah, if you want more time freedom, I definitely recommend, if you're going to have rentals in your portfolio, I recommend turnkey for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I like that. Hey, what's the best way for people to reach out to you if they wanted to connect?
Easiest way is you can either go to moneyripples.com, our Money Ripples site. We've got all kinds of education stuff on there. You can also look us up on YouTube, the Money Ripples channel that we have as well, where we have our podcast. We're actually in our 9th season right now. So it's crazy to think that we're almost 10 years into our podcast today.
That's crazy. That's good. I saw you have like 300 episodes or something.
We're actually getting close to 700 episodes right now. You can only see 300 because Apple limits you, right? So you can only see the last 300. But yeah, we're actually almost to episode 700 now.
Yeah, that's good, man. So who's your ideal person? Like, who's your ideal target audience? Like, what people are really good fit to work with you?
Dave Ramsey poster children or graduates. Those are people that really, people that maybe were like good savers and then realized that's not enough. Like, you got to have the next level to actually create freedom. I love Dave Ramsey. He's a great guy. He's done a lot of good. But if someone wants to create real wealth and actual financial freedom, you can't do it saving your way to wealth. You can't just throw money in your 401k, expect it to work, because statistically, it hasn't worked ever. So, and we talk about that on our show a lot, that mutual funds just aren't cutting it for people. They're not able to retire. My dad was one of them, by the way. My dad, when I sat down with him as a financial advisor, looked at his numbers. I said, Dad, even though you paid off all your debt and you saved like crazy in your mutual funds, you're not financially free. And I was just talking to him the other day. He's like, yeah, I just saw an episode. You were referencing me. Thanks, Chris. And he's like, it's true, though. He's like, I did everything right, and yet it was not enough, And so that's the people we're really helping out. Even people are looking like infinite banking, but you want to use it as an investor or a business owner where you get to double dip on your money. We even have a whole branch that deals with that too. And not to create financial freedom. You can't become financially free with any kind of financial product, but it's a great way to kind of amplify your returns on the investments you're already doing.
Right. Yeah. I look at all the life insurance too. That's like a stability thing. That allows you to invest in other things, because if you die prematurely, that creates the wealth you would have had if you saved it.
That's right. Yeah. Well, and that the death benefit's great. But you want to design it in a way where it's low cost. And unfortunately, even people that talk about infinite banking out there, most of the time they charge you too much in insurance costs, so that it doesn't really make sense as an investor. But there are ways you can design it. Sadly, just insurance agents won't do it because it cuts their commissions too much. So you never ever find out whether you actually got a good deal unless you do it right. And that's kind of our commitment is 100% of the time, we always beat another infinite banker's numbers when we do it.
Yeah, what are you guys using, Universal or Whole Life?
Whole Life, yeah. I used to use Universal when I was a financial advisor back before it got popular, but I started to see some of the weaknesses even back then that are a little bit sketchy, especially if you're trying to use it. You really don't want to be using it with investing that much. It's a little tricky when the insurance costs keep going up on you every year, and if market values go down, even if you don't lose money in those like index Universal Life, it's tricky because you could still lose money in those policies. And then if you're trying to invest at the same time and leverage it, you end up not making any money. You even end up losing money. So you got to be careful of those.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you do have to be really careful in the life policy. Yeah, you don't want them to blow up on you.
No, definitely not. No, I had that problem. I remember buying a policy where I put 25 grand into it. This is back, before the last recession, and it wasn't designed the right way. Even though the guy said he was an infinite banker, he was just doing plain old vanilla whole life policies. When the recession hit me, and it hit me hard, right? Especially with cash flows and things that got tight, I couldn't afford to pay the premiums. I lost everything in those policies because I paid 25 grand into it. I had a couple $100 in cash. The thing couldn't even last, even when I couldn't make payments anymore. So we make sure that when you design them, really you could pretty much put it in year one and then put nothing in the rest of your life. It would still be okay.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. Yeah, and you're right too, because like the Universals, the mortality rates just keep rising.
They
versus
do.
Whole Life is just stable the whole way across.
Yeah. There's reasons occasionally to use Universal Life, but for the most part, especially if you're trying to do infinite banking or you're trying to double dip, where you get your money to pay you twice, where you can still invest the money and you can still make money inside of life insurance at the same time, so you get an extra couple % return on your investments. You really don't want to use Universal Life. You want to use Whole Life for that.
Too good to be true, right?
That's right. Exactly.
Yep. Well, cool, man. Hey, thanks. We appreciate you coming on. Again, give us your website one more time.
Yeah, website's moneyripples.com. And then you can always look up the Money Ripples channel on YouTube.
All right. Hey, what's your favorite book?
Man, besides the Bible? That's a good one, right? It is literally the good book. But I would say my favorite book, other than that's coming out right now, and it's one that maybe hasn't been mentioned as often because I'm going to stay away from the popular ones that are my favorite books. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie is a great one. But I also love Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. Great book.
Okay, I'll have to check that one out. I've read Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends. That's great.
That's a great one.
You said Atlas Shrugged?
Atlas Shrugged. Yep, like Atlas that holds the world on his shoulders, and then he shrugs the world, drops it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right, good stuff, man. Hey, well, thanks for coming on. We appreciate you.
Same here.
Hey, everyone, thanks for listening. Until next time, get out there, crush it, and close some deals. Hey, see you, Chris.
See ya.